Live now to Dr. Max Abrams, her terrorist analyst and assistant professor of political science at Northeastern University in Boston. Welcome to the programme, Max. Now, the US and Turkish military leaders, they've agreed on a long-term plan for operations against ISIL in Syria and for Raqqa. They've something special planned. Let's first have a quick listen and see what they said.
The coalition and Turkey will work together on the long-term plan for seizing, holding and governing Raqqa.
Quite strong words used there. What do you think, in your opinion, Max, is meant by governing a city inside a sovereign state?
Well, Raqqa is going to be a tough nut to crack for the United States for all sorts of different reasons. The biggest is that the U.S. has really been searching unsuccessfully for boots on the ground in Syria. The main boots that the U.S. has used in Syria are the YPG, the Kurdish forces. And Turkey regards the YPG as really just an extension of what we call the PKK, which is the Kurdish terrorist group based mainly in Turkey, which has been attacking that country for decades. And so there's this careful balance where the U.S. wants to include Turkey. Turkey is a NATO country, a NATO ally, and yet the primary ground forces that the U.S. uses are anathema to Turkey. And so the U.S. is basically trying to reassure Turkey that if we use the YPG forces, that doesn't necessarily mean that there will be an establishment of a Kurdish state, and that basically the U.S. is taking Turkish concerns over the Kurds seriously.
The thing is, they have used, if you look at that sentence, very, very strong language. What do you think they're trying to achieve by openly saying that they want to control the city?
Again, I think that the U.S. is really just trying to placate Turkey. I think that there's a real concern that Turkey is going to go on the offensive even more against the Kurdish fighters who are indispensable to Islamic State. Furthermore, the population inside of Raqqa, they're not friendly with the Kurds. So they do not want to be liberated by Kurdish forces. They want to be liberated by the kind of force which Turkey would provide, which would be more Sunni Arab. And so there are all these sort of cross-cutting concerns, which are nothing new, but which are really coming to a head as we plan for dealing with Raqqa.
Now, if we imagine that the operation is a success, how do you think they're planning to govern the city? Because it doesn't take away the fact that there is an elected president in the country.
Yeah, I think that it's almost premature to talk about governance. This Raqqa mission is actually going to take a long time. Even before going into Raqqa, they need to sort of isolate the city. And my understanding is that that'll take, a couple months. So the actual invasion into Raqqa itself might not happen until Christmas. But I agree, it's going to be extraordinarily difficult. One of the reasons why we've gotten to this point is because such a large portion of the Syrian population, not all of it, but a large portion of it, is highly, highly militarized. And so, and actually quite extreme. And so this is the reason why the U.S. has had such difficulty finding a reliable, moderate rebel force to take on Islamic State. And those conditions persist. So when you look at other cities in Syria, for example, in East Aleppo, or even more so in Idlib, you see that the cities are really dominated by Salafists. And these are Salafists who aren't even Islamic State Salafists. And so I think everybody needs to understand that even after Islamic State is expunged from Syria, the country is still going to be teeming with other kinds of extremists. And so this makes governance, of course, really difficult going into the future.
Well, Dr. Max Abrams, terrorism analyst and assistant professor of political science at Northeastern University in Boston. Thanks very much for joining us here on RT International.
Sure.